I won't heal even if I get hurt. But that's normal. I've relied too much on this body of mine without even knowing it. People die when they're No way, he said it! People die when they're killed. People die when they're killed. People die when they're killed. That is the best line in this whole visual novel. Hey guys, welcome to day 2 of Anime Week. So, a day before Shirou Day, I finished the Fate route of the Fate Stay Night visual novel, and to say the least, it was beautiful. I loved exploring these characters' minds, their dreams, their untold goals, and specifically, I loved getting to know Saber better. In fact, she was the main reason I even bothered reading this. When I first began the Fate series way back in the beginning of May, I thought Saber was very interesting, and after seeing how much she ate into the Studio Dean adaptation, I quickly made her my favorite character.
Sakura, do you ever focus on anything else besides food?
I focus on all kinds of other stuff.
I thought she was a great pairing with Shirou. She was someone who was lawful good, someone who would kill for the greater good, someone who would do anything to protect others. I only thought she was a good pair for him, but I never knew exactly why. Until I read this visual novel, I realized that these two people are the same. Also, I read this novel because when I said I liked the Studio Dean adaptation, people told me I was dumb and I should really read the novel for the real story since they butchered the characters in the show. Honestly, I think this adaptation did a good job with getting me into the Fate series, and even after reading the visual novel, I'd still tell people to watch the 2006 anime before the Unlimited Blade Works show or Fate Zero. Even if it does take creative liberties, it adapts the general story well enough for you to know all of the servants and Saber and Shirou's turmoil. In the novel, we see Assassin once, Caster gets bodied in less than 2 seconds, and Lancer is hardly in it, though they do reveal a special detail about him. However, with these liberties, they're able to adapt moments like this. So, it isn't so bad in my opinion. Nonetheless, this video is not just a celebration of my Fate Stay Night journey ending a chapter, or a thank you to all the people who tune into my live streams, but it is an analysis of my 2 favorite characters in this franchise, Saber and Shirou. Also, if you want to watch my gameplay of this visual novel with my live reactions, the playlist is on my channel. Okay, well, let's start with how these characters are similar. As I mentioned before, Saber would do anything for her country, as she constantly states that she's a king or servant before she is a woman. No emotions inhibit her from reaching her goals, making her pretty stubborn once she has her mind set on something. After Shirou has a dream of Saber's life, he sees how she was isolated as a king for 10 years. No one talked to her, no one really liked her, and most people were just waiting for her reign to be over. She became the perfect king, but she set aside her emotions for it, and that aided in her downfall. Because to rule over humans, people figured you would also need to be human. Still, she served her duty as a king to the very end, dying in the Battle of Kamlan for her country, which did not save it from ruin. Since then, she has been seeking the Holy Grail to not only undo that moment, but to undo her role as king. She wants King Arthur to disappear. She wants someone else to take the crown. She wants to free herself of the guilt of leading her country to ruin and watching those die around her. It was a tragedy that scarred her. Now, Shirou spends most of the game trying to convince her out of this. He keeps telling her that she has done her time as king and needs to move on. She owes nothing to those people, so she should do something for herself for once. Use the Holy Grail for her own happiness. Now, at the time of telling her this, he partially wants to convince her to use it to be reincarnated and stay with him, but also to let go of the idea that she owes her life to those dead people. But here is when you realize that these two aren't so different. You see, Shirou lived through tragedy too. He walked along a sea of flames where he should have died, but was saved by Kiritsugu Emiya. Now, I thought he was truly the only survivor, but no. The visual novel has a scene where he goes to find Kotomine to get some info if he has a plan to stop the extra servant walking around. But he finds a dank basement full of almost dead people. Their limbs are cut off, bugs are eating them, and they could easily be mistaken for corpses. But they're kept alive by this medicine. It's a really graphic scene, but Kotomine arrives and tells Shirou that these are people who, too, were in that sea of flames 10 years ago. Had Kiritsugu not adopted him, Shirou would be in their place too. This was not the only thing that shocked Shirou, as when he was stabbed by Lancer, he fell over and heard their voices. He heard them ask him where they were, and also, he heard the voices of those he left behind that night 10 years ago. People called out to him, begging him to help them. He passed by mothers, pleading him to take their children, people who ran to save others but got stuck under the rubble, and many, many corpses, but as a child, he got tired of it quickly, tired of the bloodshed, of the pain, of the cries. So he kept walking and ignored it all. This was what followed him for many years. It was why he could never move on. Additionally, knowing that some of the survivors were taken and trapped in this basement to have their souls be fed on for 10 years, it disgusted him. Eventually, Saber arrives to save them since, he's almost dead on the ground, and Kotomine offers them the Holy Grail if they admit something, that they would go back and undo it all. Now, while reading this, it should be obvious that Saber would take the Grail to undo it all, and she knows Shirou will too. Of course, it's quite unceremonious doing the ritual in the basement, but we know what to expect. However, Shirou looks at all those people, thinks of all the pain he witnessed, and says something that shocks them all. I stare straight at the dead corpses, and I reject them. He knows that going back to the past means all those people who suffered, those who cried and held funerals for their losses, those who grieved and moved on, those who risked their lives to save others. If he undid it all, where would all of that go? He continues on, saying that people will eventually die and that death will be sad, but pain should not be the only thing that remains. Death leaves behind bright memories. Honestly, this was a great message to read right after listening to Andrew Garfield's thoughts on loss. You can look it up yourself if you want. He says it beautifully, but Shirou says something amazing after this that is genuinely such a beautiful quote. Come on, Shirou. He can't stray from his path for the people he left behind. This is beautiful writing. As an actor, I love characters, and this dude is still one of my top characters in anime, period. He's just so cool. He then stops hearing the voices, and yeah, but this moment is so significant because this entire novel has us revisit this time in his life where the ultimate tragedy happened around him. We've seen him crumble just from being slightly reminded of this. And even Saber has seen it because they've shared their memories. This moment is also significant because Saber has been held back by this guilt of letting those around her down. She's allowed the sins of her past shackle her from doing things for herself. She has not been Artoria Pendragon ever since she drew that sword from the stone. So when this person she thinks she knows so much about, this person who also went through a tragedy like hers, only she thought they were similar. They could not be similar. His mind is strong, and she, only able to deny his words, was wrong. When this person says he would not go back and undo it all, she gains a new perspective. Then she's offered the same thing by Kotomine, a chance of renewal. I mean, this is why she became a servant, to undo her deeds in the past. This was her contract. This was her oath. And then to spice things up, Kotomine says if she kills Shirou, she could get the Holy Grail, which honestly is dumb to me because no way she would kill Shirou for this. Which is amazing because, yeah, she admits Shirou matters more to her than this goal. And she thinks for a moment, realizing that she was raised and lived as a king. If the end result was destined to be her ruin, then why try to change it? If she was proud of her life, she would not wish to go back and redo it. So she thinks on Shirou's words. She knows she's not a king anymore. And finally, she has served her oath as a king. She died doing so, but it is done. She does not need the Holy Grail. Both of them don't. But she's no longer a king as she's lost her country. So her wish should be for herself, as he says. No, that is not something that should be wished for. It was her decision to become king. It was never painful for her. Even if no one understood or accepted her, she believes that what she desired was something she can be proud of. At the least, the girl pulled the sword out believing so. That is the answer. Just like him, that is the only answer she can be proud of. See how I said they were similar? They both learned this at the same time, but Shirou helped Saber get there. And it didn't take a date with a bunch of random stuff in it to do so. I like how long it takes Saber to realize it. I mean, it was a solid 13 minutes of reading before she finally says no to Kotomine. I think this kind of character work is beautiful, and it's why Saber's my favorite character. She's so good, but she was misguided by her guilt. She finally learned that it's okay to be selfish, to let go, to move on. It is wonderful, and I loved every minute of it. And then she takes Shirou's hand, and the both of them get out of there. There are so many other romantic moments that I'd love to talk about, like how Saber learns that Shirou has been the scabbard she lost. Also, there's that moment when Shirou finds Saber after their argument, and Saber thought he was done with her, and she tried to leave, but she legit was so lost, she couldn't move from that spot for 5 hours, and he told her that he was going to take her home. He had dinner and her bed prepared. And then after Gilgamesh attacked them and cut half of Shirou off, he still got up and tried to defend Saber because he promised that he would take her home and he wouldn't run away leaving empty-handed. Oh, it was such an amazing moment because it really did seem helpless, especially with how Gilgamesh is such a disgusting creep to Saber. But the point is, Gil seemed like an unstoppable force, similar to Berserker, but Shirou uses projection and creates Saber's scabbard, and she takes his hand and they blast Gilgamesh so hard he starts bleeding. And then my favorite scene happens. After Gil leaves, Shirou is still split in half, but his body starts regenerating like Deadpool kind of, pulling the half of his body that was cut off back to him. And Saber hugs him while this happens. Now, I love hugs. I love when characters hug. I love to hug. You probably heard me say in a video that I wanted to see some characters hug, but like this moment with the music and this gorgeous art, it struck my heartstrings. And then chat told me that she not only hugged him, but she was holding him together so that he could heal. And I legit almost broke down. You can hear my bang on my desk and my mic falling. She's holding his body together while hugging him. I dropped my mic. I got so emotional, I dropped my mic. Needless to say, I was happy to see my favorite anime couple do something like this. I truly think they are a perfect match for each other because there really is nothing but support for each other in their intentions. They've had a bond since before they met, with Shirou physically being the piece to complete Saber, and Saber dedicating her life to being his sword. The last word she says to him is that she loves him. And I want to cry now just remembering it. This shows that these two lovebirds are made to be together. Their lives are bettered thanks to each other, and it has to be fate that she would stay the night and change their lives. Anyway, it was so beautiful seeing them be happy together. Honestly, that's all I wanted after watching the anime and seeing Saber suffer for 2 shows and 3 movies straight. Well, 3 shows if I include Fate Zero. Maybe even 4 because she was in Fate Apocrypha for a bit. But anyway, it was a beautiful moment and I wish they could have hugged again before she left, but whatever. Another amazing thing about this visual novel was the art. There were beautiful pieces that I can go back through the gallery and look at. Times when Saber was fighting, or when she was with Shirou, or when she was happy. They were all so amazing. It really enhanced the emotion of the story, and I think people caught on when I clicked graphic in the menu and made people take screenshots. This is the sweetest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. Take your freaking screenshots. Everybody. Take them. She looked so beautiful, but it was also the normal portraits. Some expressions they only show once, like Saber tearing up, and that hurt especially because you've never seen it before. But there were moments where she got really up close to the camera and just smiled, and it warmed my heart so much. I think her design is wonderfully drawn, and it would have been interesting to see her with some toned muscles since she complains a few times about being insecure about her body when she looks at Rin, but still, she is gorgeous and the art is amazing. Additionally, live streaming this visual novel has been one of the best decisions I made. At first, I planned to read this on my own and write a review, but actually having people read along with me and tell me their thoughts has enhanced my experience so much, and I met a lot of cool people from doing it. Some people would stick with me the whole stream, and one day, I did a poll that had 30 responses. I made new friends like Riffley, who makes edits, and you've probably seen us interacting on some posts. But seriously, thank you to everyone who tuned into my streams and stuck along with me for those 14 episodes of reading and yapping. It was seriously a pleasure, and I can't wait to stream even more Fate. I love this series more than you guys will ever know, and I can't wait to get the Avalon ending to finally get a happy ending for Saber. If you want more of my thoughts on Saber, I'd be happy to share. I'd even make a video on why I think Saber is the best pairing for Shirou, because I forgot to mention, but during their hug in the novel, Shirou was like, it should be me holding her. Or even why I think the Studio Dean adaptation isn't that bad. But just tell me if you want to see stuff like that. Thank you guys so much for watching, thank you for encouraging my Fate obsession, and thank you for being such good viewers. That was day 2 of Anime Week. Get ready because this time tomorrow there'll be a video on Dan. Leave a like, subscribe if you're new, remember that people die when they're killed, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace out. Guys, we did it. Look at her. Post-credit scene? Post-credit scene? Post-credit scene? Anything else? Finn. Golly. You got nothing else for me?
Damn, baby, come jump off the roof with me, live up your youth with me before they shooting me. With all they cameras and bullets, I swear I'm the man up in France with the hooligans. Yeah, I'ma withstand it, be